Good afternoon. For my English 4 Capstone project, I decided to present on Seneca and Stoicism. So what is Stoicism? The word Stoic is derived from a Greek word that translates to stone. The briefest definition and summary of Stoicism is the belief in the endurance of pain and struggle without feelings of emotion or complaint. And not only is it the endurance of pain, but it's also the acceptance of it and suffering with meaning and to overcome those struggles. Many see Stoicism as the teaching of highest virtue by ancient philosophy, and Stoicism has been used by many great figures, historical figures and great leaders who have bared the worst struggles by using Stoicism. So, the origins of Stoicism. In the 3rd century BC, during the Hellenistic period in Greece, there was a recently freed slave called Zeno. Zeno was on a trip from Phoenicia to Piraeus in Greece when his ship was caught in a storm and it sank and he lost everything. He was lucky enough to wash up alive on the shores of Athens, Greece, where he began to study philosophy through Socrates. It was from the teachings and Socrates' expertise that he became a teacher in himself, and he would teach what he would call Stoic philosophy. And even though it was a very basic and rough understanding of Stoicism that we know today, it did offer a base for other people to build on, such as Marcus Aurelius. Marcus Aurelius was the emperor of Rome from 161 to 180 CE. He was under all the pressure from ruling an empire to leading his legions and dealing with corruption in his courts, but he still managed to do his duty and self-reflect through Stoicism. It's through this stress and his struggles that he wrote Meditations 1 and 2, which detailed how regimented his life was and how he found time to meditate with himself and how he used Stoicism to find purpose through the chaos around him. Lastly, we have Seneca. Seneca was a rather well-off person. He was one of the richest in the Roman Empire, and he was very well educated. He was exiled and brought back to tutor Emperor Nero's son. Seneca taught mostly normal people and wealthy people that these kinds of people could be unhappy even with their wealth and still feel meaningless. And he mainly taught people how to navigate the downsides of a comfortable life where not much happens. So the core values of Stoicism. The first is to accept the world how it is. The second is to understand that we're very little in the grand scheme of things and we can't control what life gives to us. Third is the question, "Why not me?" by Viktor Frankl, which is a response to when people suffer and usually ask, "Why me?" And Viktor Frankl asks this because if it can happen to someone else, it will eventually happen to you too. And one inevitably does face suffering. The one person must find meaning through the struggle and use it to grow. And lastly, when there's no other way to change the situation, Stoicism challenges the person to change themselves and their outlook on the situation. So, Seneca's life. As mentioned before, he was born to a very prominent Spanish family. He suffered from asthma and had a bunch of bouts with tuberculosis when he was younger. And when he was a teenager, he moved to Rome with his aunt, where he began to study Stoicism. And while in Rome, he became interested in politics, plays, and philosophy, even later becoming a senator, a playwright, and a philosopher. So, Seneca's teachings. Seneca gave great advice to his peers, as mentioned by Lucius Annaeus, and his main points for the normal and wealthy people were to find standards and a regimen to live by, to not let their wealth control them, and to fight against an ego. So Seneca's death. In 65 AD, Nero sentenced Seneca to a forced suicide. Instead of hesitating, Seneca loyally obeyed, and he killed himself with his own sword. Seneca did this because he knew that if he didn't kill himself, Nero would go after both him and Seneca's friends and family. Instead of continuing to live a comfortable and wealthy life, Seneca chose to die virtuously for both his friends and his family. So the impact Seneca's teachings have, and Stoicism. Stoicism is very transferable and flexible to modernity, especially for an ancient philosophy. Many professionals use Stoicism. For example, Bill Gates. Bill Gates first struggled to begin Windows, and he had a lot of setbacks and a lot of failures. But after a lot of meditation and self-reflection, he realized that the failures in themselves were just as valuable as the successes, in that he learned from them, and he can now move forward without having to worry about them again. And even though he is a billionaire, Bill Gates is still an avid reader, and he loves the classics like the Enchiridion by Epictetus, Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, and Letters from a Stoic by Seneca. And although Bill Gates is a big example, the flexibility of Stoicism comes from how simple it is, especially for us, the normal people. Seneca perfected Stoicism to fit the needs of people who are suffering, but at a more technical and modernized level. He perfected it for normal people that struggle to see the meaning in life despite having all of their physical needs fulfilled. And now I have a video of what I think Seneca's most important point is.
Seneca says, he should put his whole heart into fighting against them. Let us overcome all things with our reward consisting of moral worth, strength of spirit, and peace that is won forever once in any contest adversity has been utterly defeated. Seneca tells us that how we perceive our suffering is far more important than the suffering itself. It rains on everyone. It's what you do about it that matters most. In our personal lives and on a global scale, we face challenges like injury, illness, unemployment, grief, divorce, death, or even a new venture with an unknown future. The truth is, the majority of us let these problems defeat us through our feelings of anger, fear, and anxiety. This negative approach makes us too paralyzed to move forward and take a step in resolving the problem. On the one hand, you can see a setback as a failure. On the other, you can take it as a lesson and use it as fuel towards greater effort in the future. You can see a long line as an inconvenience, or you can see it as an opportunity to practice patience. You can see a rejection as a permanent mark of your inability, or you can see it as a stepping stone in your journey to greatness. When you have the right attitude, nothing can stop you. When you have the wrong attitude, almost anything can. Number 8.
So, Seneca proposes this idea that pain is also a feeling, and like happiness, those feelings can go away, or they will eventually go away, and pain is all in the mind. And to overcome strife, you just can't feel these things or let them get to your head, and you can't let them affect your next move. Moments like these in suffering, and even success, they can be anticipated, and then they can happen, but what comes after is something for the person to decide. You can either let it hold you down, or you can get through it and keep pushing forward. And the best way to go through life, as mentioned in the video, is with a good attitude and to keep your head up. And that is truly the only way to get through. And the last point is the final centerpiece of Stoic philosophy, and that's the idea that we're all going to die eventually. Memento mori translates to remember death in Latin, and everything good and bad will eventually come to the same end, and our time alive is short. So it's what we do now in this life that will be our legacy, and how people will remember us. And the idea of a short life and death and eventually coming will come, and that will be our legacy. And it's better to live a virtuous life than to live one with no meaning. Thank you.